My dad was always the hero in every story he told. When I was little, I'd sit on the edge of my bed, legs swinging as he told tales of how he saved stranded hikers in the Rockies, pulled a kid from a burning car, even stopped a robbery once while off duty. He was a firefighter for over 20 years, had plaques and medals and a whole wall of newspaper clippings in our basement to prove it. Everyone in town loved him. He'd walk into a gas station and get free coffee. Waiters knew his order before he sat down. Every school career day, he was the one parents requested to speak. My friends used to say I was lucky. They'd say, "Your dad's so cool," or "He's a real-life superhero." And I believed it. I believed every story, every exaggerated detail. I never questioned it. Not until Mom disappeared. I was 12 when she vanished. It happened just after my birthday. I remember the cake, a cheap chocolate one from the grocery store, but Mom had written my name on it in her messy pink frosting. She wore her favorite sweater that night, the red one with the fraying sleeves. She hugged me tight and whispered, "Never forget how loved you are." And then the next morning, she was gone. Dad said she left, said she couldn't handle the pressure, the responsibility, said she wasn't cut out to be a mother. I cried for days, begged him to call the police. He said he already had, but there was nothing they could do. "People leave, kiddo," he said. "It hurts, but they do." He threw out her clothes, boxed up her photos, painted over the wall in the hallway where she used to mark my height in pencil. I hated that. I remember standing in the hallway at night, squinting at the paint, trying to see the faded numbers beneath. School was hard after that, kids whispered. Some teachers gave me pitying glances. No one ever said anything outright, but I saw the way people looked at Dad. Differently. Like they knew something I didn't. Like they were afraid of knowing more. I kept quiet. I wanted to believe he was right. That Mom just left. But little things didn't add up. Like how her favorite mug disappeared the same day she did. How her toothbrush was gone, but her purse wasn't. How Dad suddenly stopped going to work the week after. Said he was taking leave, but his uniform sat untouched for months. He started drinking more. The medals on the wall gathered dust. Career day came and went without him. Then one day I found her journal. It was tucked behind a loose panel in the back of her closet. I only found it because I knocked the panel loose while looking for old winter gloves. It was small, leather-bound, tied shut with an old shoelace. Her handwriting was unmistakable, looping, open, rushed. I sat on the floor and read every page. At first it was normal. Grocery lists, thoughts about work, little notes about me. Ryan said telescope today. Or, he wants to be like his dad. I hope he never sees the cracks. That last part stopped me cold. I flipped further. The entries got darker, more erratic. She wrote about Dad losing his temper, punching holes in walls, shouting about money. Once she wrote, "He looked at me tonight like he didn't recognize me, like he wanted me gone." I couldn't breathe. I kept reading. She wrote about trying to leave, about hiding money in the vent behind the laundry machine, about talking to someone named C. One entry said, "If something happens to me, tell C everything. The bruises, the threats, the night with the knife, all of it." I dropped the journal. My ears rang. My hands felt numb. Dad got home 15 minutes later. I shoved the journal under my bed, too scared to hide it anywhere better. He was drunk again, but not angry. Just quiet, slumped on the couch watching TV with the volume low. I stared at him from the hallway. The man everyone called a hero. The man I used to want to be. I felt sick. That night, I snuck out to the laundry room, opened the vent. Inside was a small cloth bag with $340 in 20s and 10s, a prepaid phone with no battery, and a folded note. It just said, "For when it's time." The next morning, I skipped school and took the phone to the library, used one of their chargers. When it turned on, I found a single contact. C. No messages, no calls. I texted the number. "I'm Ryan. I found her journal." 3 hours later, I got a reply. "Meet me where she used to go when she needed quiet." I knew exactly where. The old greenhouse in town. Abandoned, overgrown. Mom used to take me there after rough days. Said the plants helped her think. I biked there in the rain, heart racing. C was already waiting. She was in her late 30s, worn boots, oversized hoodie. She looked at me with sad eyes and said, "You're taller than she said you'd be." I asked if she knew Mom. She nodded. We worked together. She confided in me near the end. I pulled out the journal. She read through it in silence. When she finished, she wiped her eyes and said, "I knew it. I knew he'd done something." I asked what she meant. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Your mom didn't run. She planned to leave. She had tickets, a shelter arranged, a new identity. She never made it because your father stopped her." I felt like the ground dropped out under me. All I could say was, "How do you know?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a photo, grainy, printed on copy paper. It was the inside of our garage, and in the corner, hidden behind boxes, was Mom's sweater. The red one, the one from my birthday, the one she was wearing the night before she disappeared. I stared at the photo, unable to speak. The red sweater was unmistakable, Mom's favorite, the one she wore every time she wanted to feel cozy or strong. And now there it was, crumpled behind dusty boxes in our garage like it had been discarded, hidden, forgotten. I asked C where she got the photo. She said someone slipped it into her mailbox, anonymously 2 weeks after Mom disappeared. No note, no explanation, just that one image. She'd taken it to the police, she told me, but they said without a body or a crime scene, there was nothing they could do. And with your dad's reputation, she added, no one was willing to push further. I felt my stomach knot. I asked why she didn't tell me sooner. She looked ashamed, said she'd tried, sent letters, emails, but all went unanswered. I thought about the times we moved, how Dad always said it was for work. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was to stay ahead of the questions, the whispers, the truth. Your mom was scared, C said, but she wasn't weak. She had a plan. She told me if anything happened, it wouldn't be an accident. I pulled out the journal and pointed to the entry with her name. She said to tell you everything. C nodded, lips pressed tight. I'm going to help you, she said. We'll find out what happened, but you have to be careful. Your dad may suspect something already. I thought about the night before, how he barely looked at me anymore, how the house had gone so quiet after she vanished. He stopped asking about my day, stopped cooking. He just drank and stared at the TV like he was waiting for something, or maybe hiding from something. I went home that night and walked into the garage for the first time in years. It smelled like motor oil and damp concrete. The boxes were still stacked in the corner, but something looked off. There were drag marks on the floor, faint, like something had been moved recently. I waited until Dad fell asleep on the couch, snoring with a beer can slipping from his fingers, then snuck back out with a flashlight. I started digging. Box after box of old junk. Holiday decorations, broken tools, dusty bins of clothes I didn't remember owning. Then I found it. The red sweater. Balled up, stiff with something dark and dried around the sleeve. Blood. I nearly dropped it. My heart pounded so loud I thought I'd pass out. Underneath it was a small silver ring. Mom's. I remembered it clearly. She used to spin it around her finger when she was nervous. I stuffed both into my backpack and retreated. The next morning, I met C at the greenhouse again. Showed her the sweater. The ring. Her face went pale. This is enough, she said. Enough to get someone to listen. She had a friend who worked for a journalist. Not a cop, not the local paper. Someone independent. Someone who didn't care about reputations. We arranged to meet her that weekend. In the meantime, I had to act normal. I tried. I really did. But that night, Dad came into my room. Not angry. Just quiet. Too quiet. He sat on my desk chair and looked around like he was seeing it for the first time. You've been distant, he said. I shrugged. Just tired. He nodded slowly. You know, your mom, she wasn't who you thought she was. I froze. He kept talking, staring at the floor. She lied a lot, made up stories, said things that weren't true. I covered for her more than you know. My throat went dry. Was he testing me? Watching how I'd react? I asked him why he was bringing it up now. He said, because I don't want you to get confused. People will say things, twist the truth. I wanted to scream, tell him I knew, ask him what he did with her, but I didn't. I just nodded. He stood up, patted my shoulder, and said, we're all we've got now, son. I didn't sleep at all. The next day at school, I kept checking over my shoulder. I half expected him to show up, drag me home, demand the journal, but he didn't. That night, I packed a bag. Just essentials, just in case. 2 nights later, I met C and her journalist friend at a coffee shop in the next town over. The woman was sharp, mid-30s, leather notebook, tired eyes that missed nothing. I laid everything out, the journal, the sweater, the ring, the photo. I even showed her the old voicemail on our home phone I'd recently discovered while scrolling through deleted messages. A single recording dated 2 days after Mom vanished. It was her voice. If something happens to me, check the vent. Tell C, tell Ryan I'm sorry. I hadn't played it for anyone else yet. The reporter's eyes widened. You have her voice recorded? I nodded. She asked to make a copy. I gave her everything. She said she needed a few days. I was supposed to wait. But the waiting didn't last long. 2 days later, I came home to find the front door open. Not wide, just barely ajar. Dad's truck was in the driveway. I stepped inside slowly. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I called out. Nothing. The living room was empty. So was the kitchen. Then I saw the garage door was open, and that's when I smelled it. Bleach, strong, sharp, overwhelming. I backed away slowly. Something had happened. Something was being erased. I went to my room and saw my backpack had been unzipped. The journal was gone. The sweater, the ring, all of it. I ran. Didn't stop until I reached the bus stop. I called C, panicked. She picked up immediately and said, don't go home. Whatever you do, stay away from the house. I told her he already took the evidence. She cursed under her breath and said, he knows. I asked what we were going to do now. She said, we expose him. Even without the journal, I have copies. The reporter has what we gave her. And I have something else, something I never told you. I asked what, she said. I was there the night your mom tried to leave. I saw what he did, and I've been carrying it ever since. My hands went cold. Why didn't you say anything before? Her voice cracked. Because I was afraid, but I'm not anymore. It's time. I sat there on the bench, the phone still pressed to my ear, while the wind whipped through the trees behind the bus stop like it was trying to rip the truth out of the air. You were there, I whispered. The night she tried to leave. C's voice was trembling, but steady enough. I was supposed to drive her. She packed a bag, had everything ready. We planned it for weeks. I pulled up out front, left the car running, went to knock on the door, and it was already open. I gripped the phone tighter. What did you see? She didn't speak for a second. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. I saw your dad, standing in the hallway, his hands were shaking. Your mom was on the floor. She was alive, but hurt. She looked at me, mouthed something I couldn't hear. And then, he saw me. My chest tightened. What happened? He stepped outside, said it was a misunderstanding, that she tripped, said I should leave before things got worse. And I believed him. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. But I told your mom I'd come back. I drove around the block trying to call her. When I came back 10 minutes later, the house was dark. The lights were off, no sign of her. He stood in the doorway and said she'd left. I closed my eyes, tried to picture it. The house, the open door, my mom reaching for help, C choking on fear, my dad turning off the lights like flipping a switch could erase what just happened. Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked, her voice cracked. I tried. I called the police a week later, anonymously. They said there was no evidence of anything, and by then your dad had already planted the story, said she was unstable, said she left her kid behind. They bought it. I didn't have proof. She took a deep breath. But now we do. Her journal, the voicemail, the photo, your testimony, and mine. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. I felt hollow and full of fire at the same time. We go public, I said. We let everyone know. She agreed. The next morning, we met with the journalist again. Her name was Maya, and she already had a draft in motion. She showed us a copy, headlined, Town Hero or Hidden Monster? What really happened to firefighter Daniel Carter's wife? I stared at his name. Daniel Carter, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who made pancakes in the shape of dinosaurs, who watched superhero movies with me like we were bonding over something sacred. That name felt like a lie now. A mask. Maya said the article would run the following week. She'd already reached out to legal, gotten statements from outside experts. The journal was backed up. The voicemail was authenticated. C's eyewitness testimony was being prepared. This is happening, she said. But you need to be safe until it does. I stayed at C's apartment that night. It was small, cluttered, but warm. She made pasta and let me crash on the couch. I barely slept, but it felt better than home. Safer. Until the knock. It came just after 2 a.m. 3 soft raps on the door. Deliberate. I sat up instantly. C froze. Mouthed, "Don't move." She crept to the peephole. When she turned back, her face was pale. It's him. I felt my throat close. What do we do? He can't know you're here, she whispered. Go to the bathroom. Lock the door. If anything happens, go out the window. I didn't argue. I ran, pressed my ear to the door, listened. Just wanted to talk, Dad's voice said from the hallway, smooth and casual. Figured maybe you knew where Ryan was. C kept her tone steady. It's 2 a.m, Daniel. You know kids, they get dramatic, run away. But I figure you two were close, maybe he called you. Pause. You wouldn't be hiding him, would you? She didn't answer. I held my breath. Because that'd be a mistake, he continued, voice still soft. I've lost a lot lately. Patience is one of them. Another long pause, then footsteps, fading. The door never opened. After 5 minutes, C called Maya and told her everything. She insisted we file a restraining order the next morning. C agreed. I wasn't so sure it would stop him, but we had to try. 2 days later, the article dropped. It exploded online. A town legend, suddenly exposed. The journal entries, the voicemail, the timeline of Mom's disappearance. Old neighbors began speaking out. A retired fire chief admitted Dad had a temper. One neighbor recalled hearing shouting the night Mom vanished, but was too afraid to get involved. Some people defended him, said it was slander, but more started questioning the story. Even old friends of his began to fall silent. The police announced they were reopening the case. I sat at C's apartment refreshing the article every 10 minutes. Then my phone rang. Blocked number, I didn't answer. Voicemail popped up seconds later. I hit play. It was him. Clever, very clever. But you don't know the whole story, Ryan. Your mom wasn't some saint. She lied too. She broke things. She made choices. Dangerous ones. You think I'm the villain? Fine, but just know the truth has edges. You keep cutting yourself with them, and don't be surprised when you bleed. I saved the voicemail. Sent it to Maya. She said it was threatening. Could help build the case. I hoped she was right. That night, we got a message through Maya from someone anonymous. No name, no details, just check the crawl space under the garage. I didn't want to go. I really didn't, but I had to know. C came with me. We waited until we knew Dad wasn't home. His truck was parked at the bar across town, like usual. We parked 2 blocks away and walked in. The house was dark, quiet, smelled like bleach and beer. I hadn't been inside in a week, but it felt like years, like walking into someone else's memory. We went into the garage. C pulled up the panel near the back wall. Underneath was a loose wooden board. It creaked as we lifted it. The air coming out smelled old, damp, and underneath it, we found bones. At first, I couldn't move. I just stared into the crawl space, the flashlight trembling in my hand as the beam flickered across something pale, fragile, and unmistakably human. Bones, ribs curved like broken branches, a skull half buried under plastic tarp. C covered her mouth. I felt like I was outside of my body, floating somewhere above the garage, watching myself go numb. I dropped the flashlight. It clattered against the concrete and rolled away, the beam spinning wild like it couldn't decide where to land. C crouched next to me and said, "We have to call Maya. Now." I nodded. We backed out of the garage slowly, carefully replacing the board, our hands shaking, our breaths shallow. We didn't touch anything else, didn't even shut the door. We just left. Maya answered on the first ring. We told her what we'd found. She told us to meet her at the station. There was a detective she trusted. Bring nothing. Don't stop. Just go. We did. The drive there was silent. I stared out the window, trying to keep my brain from fracturing into pieces. The bones, the crawl space, the voicemail. My mom's voice saying, "Check the vent." All of it spinning in my head like a storm I couldn't step out of. The detective's name was Howard. Mid-50s, tired eyes, slow movements. But when Maya introduced us and said he's the one whose mom disappeared in 2011, he straightened up like someone plugged him in. We told him everything. The journal, the voicemail, the photo, the sweater, the eyewitness account, and finally, the bones. He listened without interrupting, then asked if we were willing to take him to the house right now. We said yes. When we got there, Dad's truck was gone, but the garage door was still open. Howard and 2 other officers stepped inside with flashlights and gloves. C and I waited on the sidewalk. I couldn't breathe, couldn't sit, couldn't think. I just paced. 15 minutes later, they came out. Howard looked grim. He said, "We found her ring." I asked how he knew. He held up a plastic evidence bag. Inside was the small silver band I'd seen on her finger 1,000 times, the one she used to twist when she was nervous. It was wrapped inside a glove, he said, deliberately hidden. They took the remains into evidence, began the process, and just like that, my mom went from missing to homicide victim. The news broke the next day. Daniel Carter under investigation for murder. Public outcry was immediate. Some people still refused to believe it. He saved my uncle's life. He pulled kids from a burning school. He'd never do something like that. But others, they started coming forward, quietly. One woman who said he threatened her sister after she broke things off with him in the 90s. A former coworker who remembered bruises on my mom's arms and how she wore long sleeves even in the summer. A retired dispatcher who said calls from our address were mysteriously lost more than once. The cracks spread. And then came the big one. The day after the remains were confirmed to be Mom's, Maya called me and said, "There's something else." I met her at the station. She handed me a file. It was from an internal investigation back in 2008. A domestic complaint filed anonymously from our home address. The officer who logged it? Dad's old friend. The report was buried. No action taken. But inside the file, someone had left a note. Not typed. Handwritten. "He's dangerous. She's scared. Won't say more, but please check on the kid." I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Someone tried, someone knew, but no one listened. Not until now. Dad was arrested 2 days later. They picked him up outside a diner mid-bite into a burger. Calm, no resistance. When they cuffed him, he just laughed and said, "Took you long enough." I watched the footage on the news. He didn't look scared. He looked satisfied, like he knew something we didn't. The trial began 6 months later. The prosecution had everything. The journal, the voicemail, the ring, the eyewitness account, the crawl space, the files Maya unearthed. The defense tried to argue it was all circumstantial, that the remains could have been someone else, that the journal was dramatic fiction, that Mom had mental health issues, that I was brainwashed by an overzealous journalist and a bitter ex-friend. But they couldn't argue with the DNA, or the bone fractures consistent with blunt force trauma, or the fact that Dad's fingerprints were on the plastic tarp she was buried in. I took the stand, testified about the journal, the voicemail, the years of silence. I stared straight ahead, didn't look at him once. C testified next. Her voice shook, but she didn't break. She told them what she saw that night, the look in his eyes, the way Mom mouthed help. She told the court how she carried that guilt for a decade. Dad never testified, just sat at the table, silent, eyes cold, like we were strangers. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours. Guilty. Murder in the second degree. Obstruction. Evidence tampering. The list was long. The sentence was life. No parole. When the judge read the verdict, Dad didn't flinch. Just turned to me and smiled. Not warmth, not regret, just a smile, like he still had one secret left. They let him out in cuffs, and I never saw him again. After the trial, I visited Mom's grave for the first time. They gave her a real one. A headstone, flowers, her name in stone where it belonged. I sat there for hours, fingers tracing the letters. I told her everything. About C, about Maya, about the journal, about the ring. I told her I was sorry it took me so long. But we'd made it. She was found, her story was told, and the man who buried her could never hurt anyone again. I always thought Dad was the hero, but heroes don't bury the truth beneath their own garage. And sons don't stay silent forever. The weeks after the trial felt like waking up in a house that wasn't mine, even though I'd lived there my whole life. The walls looked the same, but the weight they carried was different. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was hollow, like it had been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. I stayed with C for a while. The house was cramped, but it felt real. There were pictures on the walls, mugs that didn't match, warmth that didn't feel like a trap. Every now and then, I'd wake up gasping, a dream yanking me back into the garage, into the crawl space, into that night. But then I'd see the sunlight through her kitchen window, smell burnt toast from the counter, and remember I was free, Mom was free, not in the way I wanted, not with her arms around me, not humming while she braided my hair or tucking me in with whispered promises. But the truth had been uncovered, and that mattered more than I ever realized. Maya's story went viral. National news picked it up. They ran segments about the fall of a hometown hero and the son who uncovered the lie. Reporters swarmed our neighborhood for weeks. People from my high school messaged me. Most were kind, some weren't. A few even apologized for saying things about Mom back then, repeating what Dad told them. She abandoned you. She was unstable. You're better off. Now they knew. Now the world knew. But it didn't make it easier. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days I'd look in the mirror and see his eyes, his jawline, and I'd feel sick. But then I'd hear Mom's voice, clearer now than ever, saying, "You're more than his shadow." One afternoon, C and I went back to the house. It was technically mine now. Dad didn't contest it. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he didn't care. I walked through the rooms slowly, like they might collapse if I moved too fast. The living room still smelled faintly like his cologne. The kitchen like bleach. In my bedroom, the paint on the hallway still bulged slightly where he'd tried to cover the height chart. I took a knife and peeled back a strip. Beneath the layers of beige and shame, I found it. Tiny lines marked with dates. 4-2, age 6. 4-7, age 8. 5-0, age 10. Mom's handwriting. Messy, joyful, hers. I stood there crying, hand pressed against the wall like I could reach through time and touch her. We didn't stay long. I didn't want to live there again. I donated most of the furniture, kept only a few things, Mom's cookbooks, a photo of us from the state fair, the last gift she ever gave me. A compass. She said once, "You'll always find your way as long as you trust yourself." I didn't understand it then. I do now. I transferred schools, moved 2 towns over. A fresh start, new people, a place where no one saw my last name and flinched. I joined the newspaper club, started writing. Not just about what happened, but about other stories like mine. Kids who were silenced, women who disappeared, truths no one wanted to hear. I told Maya once, if one person reads my story and asks a harder question, it's worth it. She smiled and said, "You already did that. Now do it louder." C started a support group, survivors, siblings, people who lived in shadows for too long. She let me speak at the first meeting. My voice shook, but no one laughed. They listened. And afterward, someone hugged me and said, "Me too." I got a letter from the prison one day. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Whatever Dad had to say, I didn't owe him my ears. Not after everything he'd stolen. Not after what he made Mom endure. I burned it in the fireplace at C's house. Watched the paper curl and blacken and vanish. Mom didn't get to send a final letter, so he didn't deserve one either. The day I turned 18, I went to her grave. I brought fresh lilies, her favorite. I told her I was okay. Not perfect, not whole. But okay, I told her I was going to college, that I wanted to become a journalist like Maya, that I'd keep telling stories like hers, like mine, until the world was too loud to ignore. I told her I forgave her for waiting so long to leave, for hiding it all from me. I told her I understood now, how fear can twist love, how survival looks different for everyone. I stayed there until the sun went down, until the sky turned orange and quiet. And as I walked away, I swear I heard her voice again, soft, steady, proud. You found the truth, baby. Now live it. I always thought Dad was the hero. He wasn't. But I'm learning to be the kind of man who could be. Not perfect, not polished, but honest, and brave enough to break the cycle.